wonder what people are saying about my videos online. Great video as always. Have you played the SpongeBob Movie video game? It shares a lot in common with this game, though it's more linear and there's a few unique aspects. You should play SpongeBob SquarePants movie game on GameCube. Are you gonna do the movie game? Are you gonna review the SpongeBob movie game? Check out the one based on the movie, the first one. Will you be doing the SpongeBob game review? If ever you decide to review a SpongeBob game again, I highly recommend SpongeBob SquarePants the movie, the video game. You should check out the SpongeBob movie game. Ever plan on mechanics and design are almost identical to the Battle for the Movie game. It also adds a few new concepts. Review SpongeBob the movie game. Huh. You know what? Maybe I should make a video about Chicken Run and pretend it's actually a video about Metal Gear Solid. That's you know what, I'll get to that later. Maybe I should get a copy of this game or something. The movie game everybody's talking about? What, the SpongeBob movie game? Alright, let's take a look. SpongeBob SquarePants, the movie game. That's pretty cheap. Good condition. Give it to me. Alright, I gotta get back to homework. Enough of this. Oh yeah, finally! Gonna take a look at another good SpongeBob game, huh? Oh. Here we go. I have never been more excited I probably have been, but you know. Take a look at that. God dang it! How does this keep coming back to me? I buried you! I threw you into the woods and still you're here again in a case that you don't belong in, huh? I'm so done with you. I'm never gonna play you again. What don't you understand, huh? What the heck is that? SpongeBob HeroPants for PlayStation Vita. I don't have a PlayStation Vita. What the heck is this? Huh. Hello and welcome to yet another SpongeBob video. In case you couldn't tell, this is an annual thing. So this isn't the game anyone was expecting, but I mean it was based on a movie, SpongeBob SquarePants Sponge Out of Water. So I mean technically it is a movie game. Let's blame it on ambiguity. And besides, I've had some trouble getting my hands on a copy of the real movie game. It's kind of weird. Anyways, without further ado, let's dive right into SpongeBob HeroPants. What? If this game is for the movie, why don't they have the same title? We're already off to an excellent start. In my time here making videos, I've seen what makes a good and what makes a bad SpongeBob game. In the end, it mostly comes down to this: respecting, exploiting users' expectations about, and paying homage to the intellectual property that is SpongeBob, while simultaneously building a functional, creative, and enjoyable game. When Big Sky Interactive made Revenge of the Flying Dutchman 14 years ago, back when SpongeBob was in its prime, aka all of the old writers were still involved, they failed on both of these fronts. Things in the game were completely different than how they appeared in the show, in some cases even contradictive. I won't go over everything, but the best example is downtown Bikini Bottom, where the player was met with this awful, dark, weird network of alleyways and a massive apartment complex to climb. Another major disappointment was that through the entirety of the game, regardless of what was happening, the player would be treated to the same couple of songs playing continuously. That was because music, rather than being associated to in-game events, was related only to a special costume mechanic. And as a result of both some costumes only being required for individual sections of the game, and one costume in particular, the jellyfishing gear, being required to complete many objectives, the song that played for about 90% of a playthrough was the fishing music. From battling thugs downtown to climbing to the top of a lighthouse in a thunderstorm, the soft playing fishing song was the soundtrack of the game, and it still haunts my dreams to this day. This was a serious offense for a show like SpongeBob where musical tunes, jingles, and themes can be as, if not more expressive than characters at times. Now, as far as being a game went, The Flying Dutchman was buggy, both functionally and audio-wise, boring, uninspired, and just, listen, this game took me 11 years to beat because in one mission you have to catch 100 jellyfish for a contest in jellyfish fields, which doesn't even look right, and bring them to this guy. But what they never tell you is that the jellyfish counter resets for every area you go to, and in jellyfish fields there are only actually 84. So I actually thought I was missing some and never bothered going back to the guy for the contest, but I didn't know that he actually counts jellyfish from other areas too. So the whole time I had enough, and I swear to God, I hate this freaking game. Oh, I hate this game. Anyways, long story short, for these reasons, I concluded that The Flying Dutchman was the worst game ever. For sucking so fundamentally as a game, for failing so ridiculously at respecting such a great franchise, SpongeBob, and for the fact that it was developed, at least for a short amount of time, alongside another game. A game that was fantastic, and who contrasted against this one in every possible way. Now, when Heavy Iron Studios finished their SpongeBob game, Battle for Bikini Bottom, less than a year after The Flying Dutchman released, they excelled in both of these critical areas. The SpongeBob brand, the essence of SpongeBob, was represented so well in this game. There were tons of explicit references to moments in the show and familiar elements to any kid who knew a thing or two about SpongeBob. You had all of the characters from the show, not just the main ones, like everyone. I mean, when freaking Bubble Buddy shows up to help you upgrade your bubble attacks, that's sick. You know that fish news anchor guy from Bikini Bottom News? He'd show up to commentate on boss battles and give the player hints. See, that's what I'm talking about. They managed to combine a familiar element of the show with a video game concept. Tutorials and hints. Want another example? When you walked off stage, your character would eventually get picked up by a giant hand like in that episode when SpongeBob got sick. And speaking of stages, they actually looked like they were supposed to. See, this is downtown Bikini Bottom. You recognize it. It looks the way it should. They had a freaking part in Rock Bottom where you would walk across the street to the candy machine, a short cutscene plays where the bus passes by, and it's just like the show! There was so much attention to detail, and so much freaking respect for SpongeBob. You can tell that it was made by fans of the show. These people really cared about what they were making, but at the same time you can tell that they were also trying to make their own product, their own game. All of the enemies, events, and ideas were their own. They just managed to tie SpongeBob elements to them, and they were clearly and deservingly proud of their work. There are tons of other great things about the game, so watch last year's video if you really want a full rundown. So the difference is that stripped of that SpongeBob texture, that layer of SpongeBob stuff, Revenge of the Flying Dutchman is a total piece of trash, but Battle for Bikini Bottom is still an excellent and creative 3D platformer. So, the game that this video is actually about, SpongeBob HeroPants, where does it stand? Can we use these two criteria to evaluate it? Well, we're gonna try. First, a quick explanation. SpongeBob HeroPants is a 3D platformer action game where you progress linearly through levels and collect various types of items. Each level features a mix of combat and light puzzle solving, which at its most complicated boils down to playing Simon Says with a set of colored buttons. The player can play as all of the characters from the movie, and after charging up a special meter, each character turns into their superhero form for a limited time, where they're granted faster movement speed, higher jumps, and some sort of projectile attack. You do this for 15 levels spanning 3 areas, and that's it. That's the gist of the game. The problem is, before you actually get the opportunity to be treated to all of this, and just after being greeted by the lowest resolution splash screen image I have ever seen, the game presents to you the worst main menu in the history of games. It might not seem like much, but it's that bad. First of all, the music that plays is just generic SpongeBob music, like ripped directly from the show. Problem is, this isn't any old SpongeBob game. In this one, you play as superheroes! That's the main gimmick! Couldn't they have played some better fitting music for that? Like something from the actual movie? Something like epic, like da-da-da, whatever, I don't care. I mean, look at Squidward's face here. Look at how serious he looks, but listen how dumb this sounds. So then you get to the actual main menu, and right away you can tell how bad of a game this is going to be because a whole button is dedicated to nothing more than opening the legal page! This was the first time the game threw me into total disbelief, and absolutely not the last. I mean, so the way a menu works, I can't believe I'm saying that, who's this video for, 2-year-olds? Is that you have various options in a list which, when selected, do something. When it comes to games, they can either launch certain sections or take you to some other special screen or menu or whatever. You know how the legal page or the EULA should have been accessed? Just like everything else! You go to it, you select it, and that's it! Why is an entire button button on my controller devoted to nothing else but opening a freaking legal page! Holy crap, it's like they're trying to cover themselves from being sued for all the PTSD this game's gonna induce right from the get-go. You know what it takes to start a game? You have to identify and navigate to either the new game or continue options. Then note the little instruction telling you to use the X button to select, then press the button and voila! That's more steps than it takes to get to the legal section. Holy crap, how the heck does accessing a legal section take precedence over starting the actual freaking crap game? My god, there must be some really valuable information in this stuff. Oh, I found it. Here we go. You will not use the product for any purposes prohibited by United States law, including without limitation the development, design, manufacture, or production of nuclear missiles or chemical or biological weapons. Geez, good thing they included that message, because the first thing I always think when I build weapons of mass destruction is how I'm gonna incorporate a SpongeBob game into their design. Holy shit! I can't believe this! But like, just the fact that the instructions for select and legal are grouped together baffles me. I can't believe I'm actually about to apply knowledge from a UI course, but structure in a user interface needs to have meaning. It can't just be a means of decluttering. Things with similar functions need to be grouped together. But selection with the X button is something that can be invoked on all of the options, whereas legal with the triangle button just opens the same legal page. I actually questioned for a minute whether each submenu or possible selection had its own legal page, which they don't. So, pressing triangle at any point in the menus opens the same legal page. I can't believe it. And the fun doesn't stop there. Oh no! In some of the submenus, for some reason, moving the selection just stops making sound. Like, it makes sound here, but it doesn't make sound here. Why? How? What? How could anybody mess that up? I honestly can't believe this. I have a whole page of notes and I'm still at the main menu. I already hate this game. So then after watching a dumb cutscene and waiting through a ridiculously long loading screen, in the context of a SpongeBob game at least, which could have just been running in the background while that cutscene ran, but you know, whatever. Finally, the game begins. Whoa! 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 The first thing to notice is that the game looks like absolute crap. The game features zero attention to detail. I can honestly say I've never seen a game with an actual budget look this awful. I'm on the first screen and things are stretching in and out of existence. The performance is awful too. Like, when you turn into the superhero mode for the first time, a short clip plays. But when you activate it, you see it happen for a split section, then the clip plays, then you come back. It's so bad. Just like any other platform, you have the ground that you can stand on and pits. Problem is, in any other game developed by people with actual brains, they would come up with some sort of smart way to distinguish between the two. Maybe make the ground ridiculously far away beneath the platforms, or put spikes on it, or just don't show it, make it like a black, dark, empty pit. Whatever. But what do they do here? Nothing! The pits look like normal ground! So excuse me for thinking I could stand on that rock over there, oh god! In one level they actually put like bomb things outside the level, so I thought, oh yes, I can finally kill myself. But of course not, you just pass right through them and fall. But then some of the decorations outside the stage you actually do collide with, so it makes no sense. It's not even consistent with itself. But the worst part is you don't even die as soon as you touch the ground or anything. So most of the time you pass through it for a bit before you spawn back, and the rest of the time you fall straight through it for a good minute before you die. Are you feeling it now, Mr. Krabs? I wonder if Mr. Krabs is feeling it now. I mean, I wonder. But then you also have moments like this where for some reason you can actually walk over the void. Problem? When you do finally fall off and die, you automatically get reset to the last position you were standing at, which in this case is the middle of nowhere and from where you can't get back to the normal level. And the worst part is, guess how I got here? I followed a trail of coins! The game guided me into this. In reality, you're supposed to stretch out a bridge here, but I didn't know that. I just tried to jump and I got stuck. My only way out was to die, which isn't even easy since the characters have so much freaking health for no reason. And sometimes the ground isn't even connected to the platforms. I mean, just looks like crap. But speaking of falling, you know what happens when you actually die from falling? A little death animation is triggered and you respawn back at some checkpoint. But would you like to guess the order of those events? It's backwards! You spawn back at some safe place, the character does his little death thing, and then it goes right back to normal. It's like these little details that we take for granted in, you know, actual games. We don't realize how much they matter until a game like this comes along and breaks us. I didn't take into account how exciting this video was going to be, so I don't know if my throat's going to make it. So heads up, I might start to sound a little bit raspy. Anyway, so I took a graphics course this past semester, and now I have a great deal of respect for the field because it was the hardest thing I think I've ever experienced. And I'm also able to put names to some of the graphical bugs and issues now. So one thing all games have to come up with a serious solution for are shadows. One way of doing it, especially for non-complex or realistic shadows on moving characters, is by building a shadow polygon. Here, the shadow isn't actually like a burnt-in texture or anything. It's actually just a small, dark shape. In this game, it's a circle with maybe some transparency, I think. That's how a lot of early 3D games handled it. And it's always been important for helping players land jumps in platforming games, using that small black circle as a sort of indicator of their position over the ground. So like I said, this game uses shadow polygons for the characters, which is completely fine. I would have no problem with it if it worked, but it doesn't. So sometimes you walk over these tiny ledges around levels, these itty bitty shifts in elevation. And what does the shadow polygon do? It tilts sideways to match the slope of the edge. Why would they do that? Why would they make it do that? That's not something that just happens like naturally or something. This is a game. Somebody programmed it to do that. Why not just like grab the highest height? I mean, it'll still look bad, but not as bad as having a dark shadow just jut out of the ground like that. Come on. And then there's these plants and barnacles or whatever, which serve no actual purpose, but for some reason you're able to stand on them. And when you do, oh man, when you do, does that shadow look good? Oh yeah, exactly what I wanted to see. These sorts of things just break the realism, even in a game like this. When shadows stop working, you realize how poorly made a game is. And it's just, it's junk. But at least the polygon isn't fundamentally broken or anything, right? I mean, it's not like it actually clips through Squidward's feet. At least these people got something right? Oh, of course not. There is zero, absolutely no attention to detail. I mean, look, this is the first level, and here's a piece of seaweed placed outside of the ground, just floating off in the air. These sorts of items and assets aren't placed by some sort of algorithm. I can guarantee that. They're placed by artists and designers. People sit down and place these objects around the game world to make it more realistic or whatever. So you know what this means? It means two things. One, some guy put a plant in the middle of nowhere and never remembered to delete it. And two, this game was very, very poorly tested, if at all. Back when I was a game QA tester in college, one of the things I noticed with a lot of games was that our manual testing really only ever covered the first levels or sections. That was because testing builds rarely ever came with tools to allow us to navigate throughout scenarios or control pieces of the game. They would give us a build at the start of the shift, we would start testing, starting a fresh game because that's all we could do, and then halfway through they would give us a new build and tell us to test that instead, which forced us to restart and left almost half of the game untested. All that's to say is that generally the first level of any game is the best tested, and the fact that such a dumb and silly mistake is present indicates to me that no one was really paying any attention. And that's how you sum up this game. Zero thought process put into anything. Hey, look, how come coins are on like the back edge of these platforms? Why aren't they centered along their length so, you can just hop around them off, the middle of the platform? That's how literally any other game would do it. Or, hey, let's build this mechanic where after charging a meter, the player can turn into a superhero for a short amount of time. But for some reason, rather than having that meter charged when a player actually, interacts with the game, like by collecting coins or fighting enemies, let's just make it recharge automatically so the player just has to, sit around and wait until they can use it. I don't know if that's just one of my pet peeves or something. I don't know if it affects anybody else, but I get really upset and frustrated when there's actually a benefit to standing still and just taking your hands off the controller in a game. The same thing happened in Five Nights at Freddy's. That's why I made a whole video about that. That kind of upset me a lot because you can actually just sit there and wait for your superhero mode to recharge and then use it. I don't know, that bugs me. I don't know if it bugs you. Tell me, let me know. Anyways, there's a couple other graphical things I wanted to address. So, clipping. It's when two things intersect with each other. And it happens in a lot of games. But in this one, everything clips with everything. Enemies clip through platforms. You clip through platforms. Freaking platforms and land masses clip through each other. Coins clip through each other and platforms. It's bananas! Oh wait, this is like Candy Dessert World or whatever, huh? The floor is a cake. Maybe it's actually like a Vasilopita or something. Ah, I get it now. That's why there's a coin in there. Here's a bit of advice. When someone can justify your bugs with Greek desserts, your game is bad. One of the worst offenders is these platforms where we can observe Z fighting. You ever played a game and saw something where like two surfaces seem to intersect with each other and it looks like they're cutting in and out as you look at them? That's called Z fighting because at those points, two fragments have the same or very similar Z depth values, or distances from the camera. And depending on that distance as well as some camera properties, the system might be unable to determine which surface to draw at each pixel. And so you get that choppiness. So in this area of the game, I came across a couple of platforms that were all Z fighting with each other. At first I was disappointed because this is a a game that came out in 2015 and cost me $50. But then I got angry because I realized that there was no reason for any of these platforms to be placed in such a way that they overlapped anyways. What they were trying to do was build a really big platform. So what they did was take 4 small platforms and stuck them into one another. That's dumb. What they should have done was just take one small platform and straight up scale it to the size they needed. That's it. There's no excuse for this. This is dumb, ridiculous junk. And it almost feels like no one involved understood anything about computer graphics. I mean, I took a single course for 1 semester and that was enough for me to suggest a solution. And it's not even the only place that it happens. There are a couple of sections where it's clear to see that this technique, just sticking things together, is how they built the majority of levels. This sort of practice abstracts game development so well, it becomes more comparable to building blocks than it is to actual development. And I don't know about you, but if I were a project manager, I wouldn't pay my employees developer salaries for playing with blocks all day. These people are supposed to be professionals. And I don't know, maybe it's because they were using an engine they weren't familiar with, I don't know. So maybe you can't blame them. And you know what? It wouldn't be such a big deal if it cost like 10, maybe even $20. I probably wouldn't care. But this is a full-priced game, and this is ridiculous. Something else that really disappointed me was character dialogue. Unlike the other games where the characters' short lines were always contextually specific, in this game characters just keep talking all the time and never shut up. I'm standing still and SpongeBob won't stop blurting out this random annoying garbage.
Ready?
I was already sick of this after just 2 minutes playing. But on top of these random bits, the game also does feature a couple of contextual lines. The problem is they repeat indefinitely throughout the level. For instance, each character has a line for when they encounter a certain type of enemy. This line will play no matter how many times this enemy has been encountered. The worst is the heart huggers. I've heard SpongeBob hundreds and hundreds of times announce in total surprise,
Ooh, a heart hugger! Ooh, a heart hugger! Ooh, a heart hugger! Ooh, a heart hugger!
and then follow up by explaining its behavior. I understand that this may have been important to express to the player once, but listening to it over and over and over again is absurd! Half the game is just characters yelling out the thing directly in front of them.
Get this bubble off me!
Another one is when the superhero meter fills up, the character will announce it to the player, also explaining to them how it only lasts for a limited amount of time.
Ready to be a superhero, but be careful, it won't last long.
You would think by that the last level, SpongeBob would understand that I know it doesn't last long, but he keeps telling me! And worst, absolute worst of all, and you're honestly not even gonna believe this, but this is the first sound you hear at the beginning of every level, because at the start of a level, the meter is already maxed out. Every single level begins with, I'm ready to be a superhero!
Ready to be a superhero!
My super energy's full! Police! The super energy is full!
It's like a sick joke! The game is so bad, I can't believe it! But enough about the beyond awful aesthetics and mood-breaking dialogue. Let's talk about the actual gameplay. So like I said at the beginning, one of the things I thought would be cool about the game was how you could play as all of the different characters. The thing is though, it never explains how to switch characters. After starting a game where I picked SpongeBob, I assumed I'd be able to make another choice at the end of the level maybe. But once it ended and after I accidentally skipped through an upgrade screen because X is now no longer select but rather leave, and you have to use a different button to actually purchase your upgrades, God, these menus are just, they keep getting worse. The game simply loaded the next level. SpongeBob informed me he was ready to become a superhero, and that was it. To switch characters, you actually have to quit the game, continue, and then select a new one. Which is easier said than done because the game likes to crash a lot. So I did this and I played at least one stage as each character. But I realized something very quickly. None of them were as good as SpongeBob. You see, every character's normal mode is the same, but when you turn into a superhero, you gain a new special projectile attack. And everyone's is different. SpongeBob's are these bubbles that automatically lock onto enemies and knock them out. The great thing about it is that you can fire it as fast as your finger can press the button, which looks dumb but makes it super powerful. Also though, you can fire it while running, jumping, and even attacking. You can fire it whenever. Now guess what I'm gonna say? No other character can do this. I started with Patrick and realized that his ice cream launching attack was slower than SpongeBob's, caused him to pause for a considerably long amount of time, and could not be fired while multitasking. Squidward similarly required him to be grounded and fired much more slowly than SpongeBob's, meaning it could only really be used effectively against a single enemy at a time, but more effective than Patrick's. Then Mr. Krabs, he had this like guided missile thing, but it was ridiculously slow and it didn't seem to cause any more damage than anything else. Then Sandy, I mean, she fired quickly, but she still could only fire from a stationary position. And what's the benefit of rapid fire if enemies only take like 1 or 2 hits to kill anyways? And then Plankton. His move was pretty much identical to Squidward's, and his walking sound wasn't in sync with his actual walking animation, which pissed me off. So yeah, the game features 6 characters, but only one of them is worth a crap, because the others are literally less effective than him. It's like they took a page from the Book of the Flying Dutchman where only one costume was really useful. And rather than that meaning the music would suck for the entire duration of play, now we're stuck with these terrible, freaking aggravating SpongeBob lines.
It just vanished, like a bad dream.
Shut up! I'm starting to feel like this game is just a bad dream. Oh no, it's not. It's just bad. And this makes even less sense considering the Xbox 360 version of the game included local multiplayer. That sucks! So what, player 1's gonna play as SpongeBob while player 2 plays with like a handicap? That's unfair! So if all the characters bar SpongeBob are definitively less useful than SpongeBob, what's the point? Well, some levels have these special walls that can only be broken by certain characters, so if you actually care about what's on the other side, you can replay the level as the appropriate character to figure it out. Problem, some levels have a couple of these special walls, and frankly, the only thing I'm interested in finding behind the wall is a better game. But dreams don't come true, so forget it. But is the game still fun? Is it at least a good platformer? Well, let me ask you this. Do you think waiting for an elevator is fun? Because if so, you would love this game. I mean, the platforming is basic. You hop from one ledge to the next. The most complicated it gets is when moving platforms are introduced. And when I say moving, whoa, do these things get going? They move so fast you can't even jump around on them reliably without losing the floor beneath you, because their movement speed is identical to yours, and since the game doesn't feature momentum, if you jump in any direction other than the direction the platform is moving in, you'll start to fall behind. At one point they introduced a faster moving platform and I honestly could not understand why. But what sucks is that a lot of the time you just miss them. You're stuck waiting there until it comes back. And then even when you do get on it, you can't rely on it to actually take you somewhere safely because collision detection is whack and just seems to stop working every once in a while. Oh, let me just take this elevator up to the platform. Oh, I'm falling. Oh, kill me. I mean, at one point they even include a button in a level that disables collisions. What a great idea. No, but for real, in this part, you're supposed to go down to this thing, press a button to open a thing, then launch yourself back up and press a new button to raise the floor. What goes wrong is that when large platforms like this move, you can no longer collide with them. So when I tried to walk on it while it was moving, I fell right through it and got stuck in an area that I wasn't supposed to be in, and where it was impossible for me to recover from, forcing me, again, to kill myself and try again. But hey, what does it matter, right? The game crashed after I beat that level anyways, and I had to do it all over again. So buttons are something that appear all over the game, and I tried honestly to justify some of their necessities, but I wasn't able to. Buttons often, at least for the first half of the game, really only affect terrain. Like they rotate a thing, open a bridge, or just in one way or another create a path for the player to continue. The issue is that none of the buttons are actually, challenging to get to. Most of the time you just walk into a new area, see a button, press it, and a path opens, and you move on. In that case, these button-triggered events could have just as easily and more effectively been controlled by an auto-trigger based on the player's current position. I can't believe I'm complaining about buttons, but I'm complaining about buttons. There are, as you can imagine, buttons later in the game that require you to place an object on them for a door or path to stay open. But again, none of these buttons are particularly challenging to get to, so there's no reason they couldn't have just been, like a one-time press. It gets worse though, because pushing the blocks or cupcakes takes forever, and sometimes I found myself going into superhero mode just to be able to push them faster. Cupcakes in particular though are really hard to move because unlike blocks, you can accidentally slide around them and push them into different directions. In Candy World, eventually you get these puzzles where you have to get the cupcake to switch floors by using an elevator. And most of the time it's a matter of bringing them down a level. For a long time I actually did the whole thing, placing them on the elevator, going to the switch, hitting the switch, then moving the cupcake to where I needed it to go, the whole thing. I realized later though that you can actually just push the cupcake straight off the edge, so what's the point? So other than this stuff, what sorts of platforming challenges exist? Well, there's these sections with bouncing pads like clams or freaking jellyfish. Sometimes they rotate and stuff, so I assumed you had to, wait until they're facing the direction you want to be launched, but after a few mess-ups, I noticed that didn't even matter. So at this point, we've established that this adventure action platformer looks like crap, sounds like crap, and mostly plays like crap. There's really just one thing we haven't talked about yet, and that's combat. Combat in this game is extremely basic. You press one button for physical attacks, and one for projectiles. You can actually upgrade your physical attacks to have this combo thing, but even without it, you can attack really fast. Most enemies just come straight at you, and by spamming the attack button, you can deal with most of them. There aren't many enemy types, and most of them have the same behavior, just different appearances. For example, the spatulas, which in the Stone Age section of the game become primitive spatulas, and later in the dessert world become lollipops, even though everyone keeps referring to them as popsicles. The thing is, the premise of the game is that someone has that book from the movie, right, that creates anything written into it, and they're creating all these bad guys and stuff. With that as the story, it's a little disappointing how uninspired the enemies are, especially since half of them aren't even creative at all. They're just Plankton's robots, even though Plankton is actually a good guy in this game. None of them have any special or interesting behavior, and none of them force the player to think outside the box like in Battle for Bikini Bottom, where you had some enemies which could only be struck from one direction or another. Once you get the supercharge time upgrade, combat barely even matters anymore. You just walk in and spam your bubble move until, you know, you win. And hold up, I don't know why, but so when you kill an enemy with a bubble move, they get caught in a bubble and float away, right? But for some reason, this one type of robot guy just expands like crazy whenever he gets put into a bubble. I don't know why. It's not like anything else about him changes. He just scales way up, just out of the blue. I swear, I repeat, zero attention to detail. Enemies sometimes spawn in waves and you have to beat all of them to progress. But there isn't even a spawn animation or effect or anything. So they just literally pop into existence, and sometimes the designers throw so many of them into an area on or off screen that the frame rate dips to seizure-inducing levels. Now you're not even just fighting to beat the game, you're legitimately scared. You gotta take all these guys out to ease the load on your console, or else it'll probably fry itself trying to render so much crap. Combat becomes really difficult once you realize that there's no damage reaction animation. When you take a hit, your health bar goes down, but your character doesn't respond to it or anything. There's so little feedback in this game, you can hardly tell what's going on. There's this one enemy type, this satellite station guy. He has a target marker that follows you around a certain area, and if he locks on, he'll launch some sort of thing at you. Pretty cool idea at first. It's, one of the most unique enemy types, until you realize just how freaking incompetent the people who made it are. So the target, you know how they made it work? When it meets you, it moves around a 2D plane on the ground and follows your position. And that's all fine and dandy, sure. That is until someone decided to put one of these target enemies on an inclined surface, the top of a hill. And now that target moving along the plane actually freaking intersects with the ground. This right here. I think this is one of the funniest screw-ups I've ever seen in a game. They didn't even try to hide it. I just want to know how someone justified putting a couple of these enemies in places like this where their markers are able to clip through the level, or if the level designers even knew how these guys worked. Come on! I cannot believe this! How did this get past anyone? How does this game cost $50? This isn't even funny. This isn't even just bad. This is just depressing at this point. In the prehistoric section, these enemies become volcanoes, but something's wrong because sometimes they don't actually render properly. I know it's hard to see, but they're actually invisible. At one point there's a boss fight against, of all the possible creative things they could have come up with, what do you think it is? Of course, a plankton robot. This was the level I tried out Sandy, and it turned out to be super easy since the nut launcher locks onto enemies and fires super fast. This is probably the one and only section in the game where someone other than SpongeBob might be most useful. But I wouldn't actually know. I'm not going to waste my time trying again. There's another part later where you have to run away from this giant Squidward dinosaur. It's not very exciting, and it kind of looks like he T-poses at the end, but again, I'm not going to try again just to find out. There's also this really weird section with a Patrick dinosaur. It's pretty messed up. I think the idea is that you're supposed to hit all of the buttons while he tries to turn them off. You're supposed to be careful because of the spikes, but you have so much health upgrades at this point that it doesn't even matter. It is really weird though, and as far as I can tell, this isn't something from SpongeBob. This is an original creation thought up and built specifically for this game. Now I know why everything else sucks. All the budget was poured into this. The final section of the game takes place in this candy world thing I've mentioned a couple of times, but what I haven't mentioned is that this area is actually supposed to be the inside of SpongeBob's mind. It's just candy, cake, cookies, lollipops, hearts, cupcakes, and it's all crap. That's it. That's what's in SpongeBob's mind. Gets me thinking about Battle for Bikini Bottom's level in SpongeBob's mind, which was executed so much better. There you could even go into other people's dreams, just like in the show, and each one felt unique and properly designed based on the character. In comparison, this is just a joke. A quick idea and easy setting to end the game. Oh cool, now instead of mountains of sand and dirt, I'm jumping on French waffles. Clearly the game is preparing me for a climactic ending. No, just no. This doesn't look like SpongeBob, it doesn't feel like SpongeBob, and it's not even an interesting setting. I'm starting to get it now why they had that warning at the beginning of the game. This isn't a game, it's a torture weapon. Buying this crap for your kid isn't just bad parenting, it's a freaking war crime. Holy shit. At the end, it turns out it was SpongeBob the whole time, or something, like SpongeBob was in a dream, or I don't know, whatever. Then the game makes fun of you for not 100%ing it and tells you to go back and finish collecting all of the pages.
Go back to any point in time to find those last pages.
Oh, that is not gonna happen. This game broke me. Look, Flying Dutchman was bad. It was so bad, it took me over a decade to beat. But this game, God, I would be lying if I said I didn't think it was as bad or maybe even worse. If I thought that game was bad for not appropriately taking advantage of elements from the SpongeBob franchise, then I have to admit that this one handled it even worse. But at the same time, SpongeBob today isn't what it used to be. The show used to have some seriously good writers, but now it's been dumbed down to this gross cringe fest of a cartoon. So considering what SpongeBob was when The Flying Dutchman came out, and what SpongeBob is now when HeroPants came out, while I can say that they are both offenders when it comes to representing the show properly as a game, I can't really tell if the penalty for the offense is equivalent for both of them. But let's go back to what I said before when I was comparing Revenge of the Flying Dutchman with Battle for Bikini Bottom. Strip both of these games down to their core, remove that layer of SpongeBob from them. Sure, Flying Dutchman might be total trash, and yeah, it might include a couple of logical inconsistencies and bugs, but it's still a semi-functional collectathon game. HeroPants, on the other hand, doesn't even meet the minimum standards any full-priced game should. It has big, bright, and dumb graphical issues, irrelevant character selections, broken collision detection, uncertain pits, infinite pits, boring and pointless puzzles, dull combat, easily abused combat mechanics. I never even mentioned this, but no alternative styles of play to break up the monotonous platforming, and the absolute worst menu system ever developed, all wrapped and held together with, you guessed it, zero attention to detail, and a $50 price tag. I can't believe it. I'm pissed and I want my money back. Yeah, Flying Dutchman and I had a beef for a long time, and yeah, I said that in my opinion it's the worst game of all time. But that was mostly due to the fact that it was developed at the same time as a game that was terrific. And if right now I was forced to play either one of these two games again, I have to say I would pick that freaking ghastly game up in a heartbeat. I'm done with this. I never want to take a look back at that ever again. That was crap. I'm done. And with that, I conclude this video about SpongeBob HeroPants. I hope you enjoyed it. I certainly didn't. Maybe I should have just played the movie game. Probably would have been better for my blood pressure. Thanks for watching. Okay, this is it. It has to end today. I need to figure out whoever this is. It's messing with my games, putting the wrong games in different SpongeBob game cases and forcing me to play these SpongeBob games. Enough is enough. I have an idea. I knew that would summon you. How stupid was I to think that real people actually put messages about not building nuclear weapons in a SpongeBob game. And of course, you knew that I was the only person in this world who would actually read through the legal pages in a SpongeBob game and find a message like that. Of course, it was all planted there just for me to finally find you. Well, now it's just me and you. And I got a couple of questions, huh? What is up with the SpongeBob games? Alright, look. I started with the Flying Dutchman. That was my own challenge. That was something I had to overcome. That was personal, And then you made me do Battle for Bikini Bottom, and that was a great game. That was when the games really started. Flying Dutchman doesn't even count. It was made by a whole different studio. This was really the beginning of the SpongeBob games. And now I've taken a look at the most recent SpongeBob game released. This crap SpongeBob HeroPants, huh? And it is absolute trash. I've seen the beginning and I've seen the end. And I know what the path is gonna look like. It's very clear. It's a downhill slope, and I have no interest in finding out any more about it. And I don't know what your problem is, okay buddy? But you need to stop, because now I'm getting upset, huh? Clearly something is wrong with you, man. You have this obsession with SpongeBob games. I mean, look at your hand. Look what you're trying to be. You're trying to be the hash-slinging slasher. This isn't real. Let me be the one to break it to you. SpongeBob is not real. And torturing me, putting me through this crap is not helping anyone, okay? You need to face it for yourself. You need to put that spatula down now. It's time. It's done. Everything's over, okay? This is the end. Put it down. Okay, good, that's good. Okay, maybe we can talk about this a little bit, huh? always knew it was gonna end like this. I knew I was gonna die in this shirt. Where are you, you freak? I'm ending this now! Who are you? Hello and welcome to the end screen. I got my points. I don't got a pepper, but what I have is this video is sponsored by Louisiana Pure Crystal Hot Sauce. So here we go. Oh! The burps come right away. A little while ago, I searched my YouTube channel on like different things, and I found like some guy on Reddit talking about me, which was like really weird because I've never seen that happen before. So like some guy who was not me posting my videos on Reddit and like talking about me. And one of the things he had mentioned to somebody was like, "Oh, I really like this channel, whatever." You know, he does these skits at the beginning, and I don't really care for them. They're not very good. They're kind of dumb and whatever. So that's why you'll notice maybe in this video a little bit, I focused a little bit harder on them because I used to like making little films and little videos when I was a kid, and you know, even all the way through college and stuff. And doing these sorts of videos, I don't really get to do that anymore, but I thought, you know, maybe I'll work a little bit harder on my skits and I'll do some cool stuff. I need to take another swig, but then I can't cook with this anymore. Oh! It doesn't hurt when you swallow it anymore because like it... Oh, take that back. Anyways, one of my biggest inspirations, at least on YouTube, I know a lot of people think because my voice, I'm Mediterranean, I'm funny, like John Tron or some crap. One of my favorite YouTubers who makes game videos is the Angry Video Game Nerd. And what I like about him is that he has like this lore to his videos. I mean, I do a very different thing. I tackle these things with more of an academic twist, and that's I think what makes me a little bit special, and I hope why you're here. Because I'm not just talking about games because I'm, you know, a gamer, because I am a gamer and I have opinions about games and I can be a critic. Yeah, everybody can be a critic. But I think what makes me a little bit special and a little bit different is that this is what I'm studying, you know? And it's not like I'm not studying like game, I'm not like on the art side, I'm on like the technical side. I'm in software engineering. That's an engineering discipline, you know? And I have a teacher one time who said programming is a mostly mathematical activity, whereas engineering is a mostly human activity. So that's what I'm doing here. I am the human and I am presenting things to you, and so that's my twist. But anyways, I always liked what he did because he does these reviews, but then he also has like this secret, you know, this lore going on behind and this AVGN universe, and it's really cool. And I thought maybe at least for SpongeBob, I'll try to do something like that because I think it might be fun. I'm not going to explain to you what the intro and outro mean, but they're linked, and there's a story going on. I don't know if any of you guys have a keen eye, you might realize the conclusion I was trying to draw between those. There are a couple of meaningful shots that get repeated both in the intro and outro, so there's your hint. And then I did things with sound too, just to try to like express what I was trying to express without like giving it away. I don't know, I think it'll just be goofy and fun to do crap like that. I don't know, if you don't like it, tell me and I won't do it ever again, but I don't know, I think it's, well, you know what, I'll just do it because I don't care. I do whatever I want. Okay, next thing, this is like complete, I don't even know if, whatever. Anyways, when I was finding myself on Reddit, I also found some guy who wrote like a blog post about me because a lot of people really didn't like the things I said in my 5 Nights at Freddy's video because it was very cold, I guess. But I had the opportunity recently like to talk to like a whole class about it and to like a professor, and people mostly on this side of game making and software making kind of agreed with most of my points, kind of. But that's what you have to remember. I'm not tackling these issues as a game guy. I'm tackling these issues as an engineer. So what I realized is I have to, now people are actually listening to me and people are paying attention to me and they're going to take what I say and they're going to use it in things. So I have to say less stupidities, which sucks. I love saying stupidities. Being an idiot is my favorite thing to be, and you know. Next thing about contacting me. So as you'll notice, I still respond to like all of my comments or most comments. Whenever I have time, I respond to comments on videos. But people have messaged me on Facebook before, and that's cool too. When people message me through the Facebook page. But a couple of times, like messages have come in like to my direct, like my personal Facebook account, and that's because I was an idiot when I was a kid and I set like one of those like custom Facebook URLs. But I fixed that recently, so it's not like that anymore. And the reason that's a problem is because when you receive messages from people like you're not friends with, Facebook puts them into like this separate folder. So if you want to contact me about something a little bit more complicated that you can't fit into a YouTube comment, send it to my Facebook page and I'll respond as soon as I can. I'm a student, so I'm busy. Now I'm an intern, so I'm very busy, but that's it. I'm gonna take another swig. Next thing, so I know I've talked about it a couple times. I have like my Twitter, my Facebook, and my second YouTube channel. Recently, like I did like that Dark Souls stream and it was awful. I'm really sorry if you were there, it was so bad. So I'm thinking, cause again, I don't know how much time I'm gonna have this summer, but I'm thinking if people are interested, I might possibly do streams. So let me know if you would be interested in streams, and if I do streams, they'll be on that channel. So you can go check them out over there if you want, or subscribe to. I don't normally upload stuff, so it's not like it's gonna bother you or anything, but if you want to see when I do a stream, if I fail to announce it properly, you'll see it over there. So last summer, I started the whole thing about Resident Evil and Pikmin, and I thought I would be able to finish them both in the same summer. I wasn't able to do that because things got very busy. My Pikmin video sucked so much it made me very depressed, and I went into hiding for a while, and I just cried myself to sleep for nights and nights and nights. And I'm not very motivated to look at Pikmin. Like basically the whole reason I started the Pikmin series because I wanted to talk about Pikmin 2. It's one of my favorite games ever, but I'm not into it, and I think it would be really boring if I just do exactly that, because that's what people think I'm gonna do. So what I think I'm gonna do, for now, I'm gonna put Resident Evil and Pikmin on the back burner. I have a special idea for Resident Evil, but I won't tell you too much about it. And for now, I'm doing something a little bit different, something that it won't be such a big deal if I'm not able to finish it this summer, but it'll still be cool. And I think that'd be a great way to end the summer. I hope I have time to do that. So that's it. Thank you for watching. I gotta make a joke about SpongeBob. The whole freaking game is a joke. Alright, I'm gonna go have some lunch now, because for the first time ever, I'm done ahead of time. Hey! Clearly my kitchen is down. I gotta go down to go to the kitchen. Oh, think of the